Hi, folks. Today we're talking with Stephen Suettinger, the writer and director of the new drama A Year and Change, which hits DVD stores today courtesy of Vision Films. Now, Stephen, I watched the movie over 2 months ago, and I gave it a 4-star review. I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the characters, the story. Everything felt genuinely authentic. And there are very few movies I find these days that can successfully capture that. As an indie filmmaker myself, I understand the complexities of writing, directing, and then trying to get the movie out for the world to see. How was your overall experience of making A Year and Change?
It was wonderful. I was mentioning that it's 9 years in the making. I think I received the script like 9.5 years ago, the original script from Jim Beggerly. And to put that into perspective, I've had 4 kids in that time. So
wow.
It's taken a long time to get the thing made. But we never gave up on it. It was always in the back of my mind. I mean, obviously, I was working on other projects in that 9 years, but this one just never left my mind. So the fact that, one, it's taken so many man-hours, if you will, in terms of writing and rewriting and prepping and shooting and post and everything else, it's pretty exhilarating. It's pretty exhilarating that the movie's out. You know, I received my a copy of the official DVD just like 2 hours ago. So
oh, you did?
Holding in my hands, holding the actual thing in my hand, it was a pretty exhilarating moment. So yeah, it was overall the process has been, 1, tiring, but 2, just there's nothing in the world that can replace it.
I thought that Brian Greenberg and Claire Vanderboom were perfect in the film. They were the sort of characters that initially seemed all wrong for each other, but as the story progressed, we saw how these 2 broken people weren't just right for each other, they needed each other. How did you cast them, and what was it like working with them?
Brian, so Jim Beggerly had written a movie called The Kitchen, which Emily Ting, our producer, produced, and they had a New York screening of The Kitchen. I would say, I can't remember exactly when, but Brian had walked up to Jim afterwards and said, hey, what else are you working on? And Jim immediately texted me and said, hey, can I give Brian the script of A Year and Change? And I said, of course you can, because Brian's one of the people that to be able to get Brian onto the show would just be, it was a coup, He is one of the people that we've always been interested in and looking at. I've known about him for a long time. So Jim gave him the script, and he read it on his flight back to Los Angeles, and he loved it. And so I flew out to L.A. about, I guess, maybe a week later, soon after, and we met, and, we hit it off, and he liked my vision of the movie, and he just came aboard. And once that happened, once Brian came on board, the train left the station. So it was just basically like, this movie is going to get made. We have amazing actor who is not just a great actor himself. He has a lot of actor friends, some of whom made it into the, he said, who else are you, at this breakfast, he said, who else are you interested in for the roles? And I said, well, Jamie Hector for Todd. Jamie is somebody that I've always wanted to work with. I used to see him when I lived in Los Angeles. He used to live, or he had a friend that lived on my street, so I would always see him when I was out walking the baby, and he was always reading a script. His nose was always buried into a script, and this was the height of The Wire, and I thought, man, he is dedicated. That guy is great. I would love, and he seems very friendly, and so I always, it would be really amazing to work with Jamie Hector. So when I mentioned Jamie Hector to Brian, he said, oh, we're friends. Jamie and I are friends. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's fantastic. Do you think you could give him the script? And he said, of course. So, I had a conversation with Jamie not long after that meeting, and he came on board, and then Brian told me that Jamie Chung, his girlfriend at the time, now they're married, but yeah, they got engaged right after shooting A Year and Change. She wanted to come on board, and she's a huge actress, and she has a lot of followers, and she's a fashion icon, and so we said, yeah, absolutely. So, and then Brian Greenberg also happened to be friends with Kat Foster when they were at undergrad, NYU together. Those were kind of some of Brian's friends that we were interested in, coming on board the movie. The other actors that we have amazing casting directors, Angela Mickey and Rachel Rice from Liz Lewis casting partners, and I cannot, whenever some up-and-coming filmmakers ask me and they say, "What can you give us some advice on what we should be doing?" I will always say, hiring a casting director, absolutely. You absolutely have to get someone that knows the business, that knows all of the up-and-coming actors on board for your movie, because they're invaluable. So we had auditions, and they had brought me, the first person they showed me was, they had auditioned a bunch of young women, but they said, we have your Claire, or we have your Vera. We're not going to tell you who it is, but watch these, 15 auditions and see what you see. And the first person I watched was Claire, and I knew right then and there that she was perfect.
Right.
She was perfect for the role. And I knew Claire from the Pacific, but I hadn't seen her in much, other than that. But she came and read, and everybody that had a say in the audition process, from the casting directors to Brian to Emily, our producer, to, I think I showed some tape to maybe Jim Begley, the writer, as well. Everybody knew that Claire was the one. So we were very fortunate to get her. And in that interview or audition process as well, T.R. Knight had read the script and came in to meet for the Victor character, actually. I had already seen tape on Marshall Allman, who we loved for Victor. I thought he was perfect for Victor. So when T.R. came in and talked about Victor, I had already had Marshall in mind, but I thought that T.R. is an incredible actor. He is mind-blowingly good on stage and in everything that he's in. So we immediately offered him the Kenny role because I thought that he would be perfect for that role, and he reread it and agreed to come on board. So those were, our leads, and we were just so lucky to be able to get so many just a wonderful cast of characters. They say 90% of directing is casting. Well, it's true. When you can cast professional actors who come to work and have made choices, it's an amazing experience. So very happy with our team.
I had no idea it was him in the film. He just seemed to completely disappear into the role of Kenny. Is T.R. Knight one of those method actors that vanishes into his role until it's all over and done with?
Yes. He's a chameleon, and he is a method actor, and he dives straight into his role, and he becomes the character that he's playing. And he stays in character as much as possible throughout shooting and everything. So, he came down to Maryland from New York a couple of days before. I think he may have even bought his own ticket down. He came down before so that he could get a little bit of a feel of the land, and he went out and just listened to people and went to several record stores and just kind of he made the choices and figured out who his character is by studying real people, and he loses himself into his roles, and he's just incredible. I was never a big Grey's fan either. I didn't watch the show. Yeah. But I had seen him in other things, and he completely transformed. You wouldn't even recognize him in this movie if you didn't know, you didn't see his name on the box.
That's what happened with me. I didn't know it was him until I saw the credits, and I was like, oh my God, that was T.R. Knight. So I had to go back and man, he looked so different than he did before. And he was in Law and Order and The Good Wife as well. So like you said, he's been in a lot of different things. But I didn't recognize him at all. Yeah,
and 42, I think he was in that movie as well. And he's just, and he's been in stuff since that. And when he's clean shaven, he feels like a completely different person. But, I feel like he is very methody, and he just became the role, and it was an amazing thing to witness.
How long did it take you to shoot the movie?
We shot over 18 days.
Wow, that's fast.
So 3 6-day weeks. Yeah, we were shooting in Maryland, and we wanted to use as much of the local crew as possible, and we knew that House of Cards and Veep were going on hiatus in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we jammed a 3-week shoot in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we were able to shoot, the whole thing in 18 days, which was
terrific. You and Jim Begley are listed, and you talked earlier about, I was going to ask you at one point, did you come up with the story, or did somebody else have the story and then you collaborated with them, with Jim Begley?
Yes. Jim originally sent me the script in 2006. We didn't know each other. He had seen my thesis from graduate school. One of his friends had shown it to him, and so he reached out to me out of the blue because he knew I was from Maryland, and he grew up in Maryland as well. So he reached out to me and said, hey, I've got a script. It has an East Coast flavor to it. Check it out, see if you agree. And so I read it, and I liked it, and I liked it enough to option it because I love, his dialogue is just incredible, realistic, on point. It's just filled with subtext. It's wonderful. So, but back in that original script, there were more characters, and there was a Dear Jen in every single scene. I knew that wasn't not necessarily going to be possible because even though I liked it as a hook, I thought there were too many. It would bring you out of the movie to have a Dear Jen in every scene. So then we cut it down, and we were going to do, I believe 13 or 14. We were going to do one for every month, and that's what we went in. When we went into shooting, we were going to do one every month, and then editing is the final rewriting process, right? So we knocked it down to like 7 or 8 because if you go, we decided that if you're showing this movie and have a month card, January comes up and then February, well, people are going to be, by the time June rolls around, people are going to be checking their watches, and they're going to be anticipating the end of the movie as you come on October and November, and they're just going to be waiting for that. So we decided that wasn't necessarily the right course of action either. My point in all this was Jim had written the original script, and he had done a rewrite or two, and then I took it over a couple of years later. And then I still didn't know my way into the script and what was how I was going to tell it, or why was it specifically important to me. And then my mom passed away in 2011.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. We were close. We were very close. So they say that when a parent dies, you take one step into the grave with them, right?
Right.
So I had a family. I had 2 young kids at the time. I had a very supporting, loving family. So I was able to not slip into that depression that people often do when their parent passes away. What I realized later was that Owen had lost his parents. He lost his marriage. His child is estranged. He's gone into a funk, and what he needs, and he's gone into a little bit of a depression himself. And so what he needed was to surround himself with that strong support system, that surrogate family. And once we came to that realization that that's what the script was about, it it took off. And that's where I found my in to the script, because as a filmmaker yourself, the hours and the brain power or just, the sheer man hours that it's going to take to put into this. You better love it, and you better have a reason why you need to do this. You need to make this movie, as opposed to you can make this movie or you want to make this movie.
Exactly.
So once I discovered that was what I needed to do, all the other projects that I was working on kind of fell away, and this one became just something that I needed to have done and needed to make. When I discovered that, it was about, the story really was about Owen surrounding himself with a family, that's the direction we took it. And that's what you see up there on the screen today. So.
Well, in all honesty, I find movies this good are far and few between, and it's like capturing lightning in a bottle. All the elements, for me, watching the movie came together perfectly. Do you think at some point you might ever do a follow-up, not necessarily a sequel, but just maybe a continuation of the story and the characters maybe a few years down the road?
I hadn't thought about it. Well, we've joked about it, doing the sequel a decade and change, right, or something like that.
Right. That's a good title.
We like to joke about the possibility that the characters, there's so many characters and there's so much to the story and there's so much going on that we could possibly, end up making a television show about it if, one day. But That's kind of a pipe dream at this point. I have some other interests that I want to kind of pursue in terms of the next movie. I think we can let this one go for a little while, maybe revisit it, but you're right. It was kind of like capturing lightning in a bottle a little bit, in that so many things happened it was kismet, really, to be able to get Brian, to be able to, we lost a producer, and then Emily came on board. We had lost a DP, and then we found Michael Leary. We almost lost Brian 2 weeks before the shoot, and then we didn't. And, there's so many things that happened that just worked out in our favor, which you absolutely need in order to get one of these things done. So, I don't know, I haven't really given it much thought, but I think there's some other things that everybody needs to do first.
Well,
yeah.
A Year and Change is your feature film. It's your feature film directorial debut. And before that, you directed two shorts, a movie called Wentworth in 2005 and Righting Wrongs in 2000. Why were there such long periods of time in between?
Righting Wrongs was my first movie that I had made, and I came out of undergraduate school with majors in molecular biology and music. And I had gotten a job on Contact shortly after graduating. Kind of out of the blue, I had a friend, one of my wife's friends, was working on the movie Contact, and I was DJing in a bar in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. or something like that after college, just kind of, those first couple of months after college. And I got this job on Contact, and I got the bug because I was able to meet Robert Zemeckis and Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey and Carl Sagan. And I was just kind of swept up in the whole process of making movies. So I jumped from movie to movie, or that shot in the D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia area. And then I decided I wanted to try to make one of my own. And I realized very quickly, even though I had some, good collaborators and very smart people around me, that I didn't have the basic fundamentals of filmmaking, where to put a camera, lenses, how to speak to an actor, when music should come in. I knew some things, but working on the set didn't necessarily teach me the fundamentals of it. So I went back to school. So that was with Righting Wrongs in 2000, and then I went back to school in 2001 and graduated in 2004, 2005, and Wentworth was my thesis film after graduating. So, and since then, after graduating, I worked on a couple of motion capture movies, including I went back to work for Robert Zemeckis on Beowulf, and then I worked on Avatar for 2 years.
Right. That was a good movie.
Yeah, that's a big movie. That was a huge movie. Gosh, the opposite of what we were doing, really. It was wonderful, and in that time, I directed a television pilot that didn't get picked up, and then a music video and a couple of other shorts that aren't necessarily IMDb credited. But so I was still working. It's just, I wasn't necessarily working on. I was doing some smaller shorts, like I did a PSA for a breast cancer awareness foundation, and so I had done a couple of things. But there's too much time in between. I don't want there to be another 5 or 10 years before I can make the next one.
Exactly, I know that's
for sure.
But you said you worked on Avatar as a digital operator. Did you get to interact with James Cameron? And I ask this because he's one of my favorite directors, but he's also known to be very, very demanding to work for, and I was just wondering if you'd had any kind of interaction with him.
I was one of his main note takers, actually. So
oh wow, terrific!
I would go up to his house, to his screening room, to his theater, and take notes and disseminate his notes from screenings to animators and the designers and people that needed to know about changes that he would make. Or I interacted with him a lot. The man, one, is a genius. Two, he knows everything under the sun, it seems. And, he wasn't difficult to work with. I heard the stories as well going into it. But here's the thing. Avatar was so brand new. We had programmers that were writing code to help these things, the things talk to each other on the fly, so we literally had computer programmers writing code for us to be able to make the movie and shoot the movie and capture the movie. And there's only so much that you can get mad about when you're in this brand new territory. You make a mistake, so what? You made a mistake, you fix it, you go back and fix it. If you make the same mistake twice, well, then we may have a problem. But he was, I made a mistake. I once made a mistake, but he let it go. So I found him to be, it was like a master's thesis class to be honest. He's a brilliant director. He's a brilliant storyteller. Just he cares about every single thing that's in the frame. And I was able to learn a lot about some of his camera moves and about how he talked to his actors and how he dealt with his crew just by being around him. So he was a great person.
Well, like you said as well, that you when you started out doing your shorts, you didn't have an awful lot of knowledge of the workings of a set. So being around somebody like him obviously was a great influence and kind of obviously helped you when you got around to making A Year and Change.
Absolutely, yes. I would say being around Bob Zemeckis, and because I was taking some of his notes too on Beowulf, but being around him and being around James Cameron, you can't help but kind of have a little bit of osmosis, right? Or at least see how they work and how they interact in terms of how they string shots together, because motion capture is a much different thing. You capture, it's almost like a stage play. You capture the action with your actors, and then you go in later and you shoot cameras on that action. You literally have infinite possibilities when you're setting up cameras because you've already recorded the action. You can put the camera anywhere you want, whatever lens you want. But seeing how they moved the camera and seeing the importance of not just that, but some of their other, realizing that they were employing some tricks and knowing kind of lenses that they like to use. Just little things like that, picking up things like that. It was an invaluable opportunity for me to be able to see them working like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you mentioned earlier, you said you directed the sitcom television pilot, and it was called American Bar.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? I mean, going from short films to a television pilot, how did that work out for you? I mean,
it was written by a very close friends of mine, brother and sister team, and came together very quickly because one of the producers / writers worked on the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And so they were wrapping that show, but they weren't going to wrap the set yet. So we had basically a weekend to use a set from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And so it came about very quickly that we wanted to just go shoot this thing and make it. So, and I was working really long days on Avatar. I mean, we were 16s at the least, but I was able to kind of pull away for a weekend and go shoot this multi-camera sitcom.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun, actually. It was great. And some of the people that you see in A Year and Change, like Dan Thiel, who played Pete, and Cruz Kim, who played Tim Kim, they're close friends of mine, and they've been in a lot of the things that I've done over the years, and they were key characters in the American Bar as well. So,
right,
it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was, talk about having to get things done quickly. I guess we shot with 3 cameras, 99 to over 100 setups in a day. Fly by the seat of our pants. But it was great. It taught me how to be economical, that's for sure. So,
right.
Which I was able to do on this movie too, because 18 days is not very long. That's not very much time, especially.
No, it's not. Well, you were out in L.A. You were out in L.A. for 10 years, and then you moved back to Maryland. And most times it's always the other way around. People move from wherever out to L.A. And you set up a film company called Pebble Hill Films. Why did you decide to move back to the East Coast from L.A.?
Mainly it was because I had a young family, and I didn't have any family in L.A. We had great friends who were basically like family, but my family was all here. I literally have 40 members of mine and my wife's immediate family within like a 30-mile radius. We have so the kids can grow up near their cousins, and we can spend time with brothers and sisters, etc. I mean, listen, it was a scary thing to the prospect of leaving Los Angeles, considering that's the entertainment hub. But technology being what it is, you can Skype now. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
Is just like you can get on the phone with anybody at any time. And for me, it's actually even better because I love to work at night, and we're 3 hours ahead, so I can talk to lots of people in LA on the phone, and literally it's just a short plane ride away. That's how I view it. And Maryland, I hate to say it about LA, but a lot of the places are kind of jaded by the entertainment industry out there. Lots of locations. I knew I always wanted to shoot in Maryland, but when we started talking to people about shooting in their homes or shooting in their restaurants in Maryland, the first question out of their mouth wasn't, how much are you going to pay me, which is what you hear in Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and hell no, you're not going to film on my block because I'm just going to put this boom box out the window and ruin your sound. You know what I mean? And
yes, you have to pay them to shut them up.
Exactly. And I don't know if we may have paid 1 or 2 locations here in Maryland to be able to shoot. Everybody else was just so thrilled that, you know, to be able to be a part of it. And the fact is there's industry here. Like I was mentioning, House of Cards shoots here, Veep shoots here. So there are crews here. There are people there's industry here. There are people, there are vendors here. There's equipment here. There are post-production houses here. There's a post-sound house, wonderful post-sound house here. There's a lot of work on the East Coast. So thankfully I felt like I could come here. It's kind of set up shop and work from here.
Okay, well then, let me ask you one more question then. Do you have any upcoming projects? I know you said when we talked about doing a follow-up to A Year and Change, you said maybe down the road, but do you have anything that you're working on in between that you can talk about?
There's, the first thing I wrote coming out of graduate school was a thriller that's kind of been sticking in my head lately, and I'm rewriting it. So, and I've rewritten it a couple of times, but that's kind of something I've been interested in for a long time. I mean, when I got out of grad school, this was 10 years ago, so I first wrote this thing 10 years ago. I'm interested in doing something a little bit different. You know, I was a molecular biology and music major, right? So I guess my interests vary greatly. So
right.
I want to try. Yeah, exactly. So I want to try something maybe a little bit different. I've also got some TV projects that I have been working on. So hopefully I can get something up and going in the next year or sometime in 2016. So We'll see.
All right, terrific. Well, folks, today we've been talking with Steven Suettinger. He is the writer and director of the new drama A Year and Change, which is available on DVD and video on demand today, courtesy of Vision Films. Steven, thanks so much for your time. And when you complete your next project, whether it's a TV show or a movie, I'd love to chat to you again about that.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for having me, James.
All right. Thanks, Steven.